caused by the U.S. intervention is uninterrupted, but even in this context, the U.S. continues to hinder the stability and development of relations between China and Russia, and even shows the intention that the U.S. is afraid of China helping Russia. In the current situation, China cannot say with certainty that the United States is afraid, but potential factors of fear do exist. The U.S. is afraid of losing its interests, and it is also afraid that its pride and joy in military power will not be maximized. From the point of view of the existing military power and scale, the U.S. military power is indeed among the world's top. Deterrence and influence should not be underestimated, and it is because the United States has this strength, so it dares to do whatever it wants in the whole world, but also always want to rely on their own strong power to maintain their hard-earned hegemony. In this purpose, the United States began to rely on their own strength to provoke relations between countries, began to focus on the potential threat body, began to large-scale sanctions and suppression of Russia, and even encouraged Ukraine to make the official outbreak of the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, resulting in serious damage to Russia's military strength. China, the United States and Russia, as the world's military powers, have a considerable number of nuclear weapons equipment. The strength is considerable. If the strong combination, deterrence will be far beyond imagination. Therefore, the U.S. has been doing its best to prevent normal communication and cooperation between China and Russia in order to avoid threats to U.S. hegemony and power. At present, the conflict between Russia and Ukraine has been stagnant for half a year, and the uninterrupted supply of weapons and equipment to Ukraine by European countries, led by the United States, has posed a certain threat and serious damage to Russia's military power. To better protect his rights and interests, Russian President Vladimir Putin has announced a defense mobilization order and said that Russia will offer all types of weapons and equipment to defend the country, including nuclear weapons. Under Russia's hardcore stance, the United States has responded urgently, clearing itself of the relationship and expressing a high-profile rebuke of Russia's possible use of nuclear weapons on the battlefield, while also expressing a friendly attitude toward China and declaring itself peace-loving, revealing its mischievous intentions. In layman's terms, isn't the U.S. worried that China will help Russia, and that it will not be able to compete with two countries, and will not be able to take absolute advantage of its own military power? Of course, the U.S. is also afraid that its most important interests will be damaged, afraid that China and Russia will join forces to establish a new financial system, threatening the dollar hegemony that the United States has worked so hard to establish.
Before the pandemic hit, if you'd asked me, could I even do my work virtually, I would have said, I don't think so. I think I got to be there.
However, China and Russia are not unreasonable countries, and their cooperation and dealings are legitimate and legal, unlike what the U.S. side calls misbehavior. Just recently, Russia and China have started cooperation again. The times are developing rapidly, and technology is also rapidly updating and iterating. Today, to say that the new era of representative technology products, satellite navigation, is bound to occupy a very important position. You should know that 20 years ago, China knew nothing about satellite navigation, and only in the last decade began to research and produce satellite navigation systems, planning to study China's own satellite navigation system, Beidou Navigation. In the last 2 years, China's Beidou Navigation 3 has finally completed its network and achieved full domestic coverage. Although China's Beidou has not been studied for as many years as the US GPS, it has surpassed GPS in terms of precision positioning capability. At present, more and more countries are approaching China to use China's Beidou system. Serbia and Pakistan are good examples. Now, China and Russia are going to cooperate again in the field of space, and what is worthy of China's attention is that the two sides have signed a navigation swap agreement this time. This means that in the future China can exchange satellite systems with Russia, which is an opportunity for both sides to complement each other's strengths. Many of you may not know that Russia also has its own satellite navigation system called GLONASS navigation system. In fact, before China, The world already has three satellite navigation systems, respectively, the United States GPS, the European Union's Galileo navigation, and Russia's GLONASS. After that, China also independently developed its own navigation system, and since then the world's four major satellite systems began to gradually establish. In the process, China's compass navigation has been continuously updated, and now the third generation of compass navigation has been successfully formed into a network, and its powerful strength has made more people and countries see and realize the potential of China's scientific and technological power cannot be underestimated. I believe that Russia's cooperation with China must also be a recognition of China's strength. So, China's strength aside, what is the Russian navigation system in the end? What are the advantages of the Russian navigation system? Russia's GLONASS satellite is known by many as the ultra-high accuracy warrior. With extremely wide coverage and accurate positioning capabilities, Russia is with 24 satellites to cover the entire territory of Russia's positioning navigation. We should know how large the territory of Russia is, and the fact that only 24 satellites are used to cover the whole territory shows how exaggerated its capability is. However, GLONASS also has a big disadvantage, that is, the satellite has a very short lifespan and is renewed very fast, which means a lot of money has to be invested, which is an important problem that needs to be solved. The interoperability of satellite navigation between China and Russia means that the signals of GLONASS and Beidou can accept each other and exchange information. This not only reflects the close and friendly cooperation between the two countries in space and aviation, but also proves the trust of both sides in each other. As we all know, Russia's economic situation has not been too good during this period, and at this time China, as a brother, naturally has to stand up to the difficulties and take care of Russia in many ways. Nowadays, commercial trade and technological cooperation between Russia and China are becoming more frequent, which shows that China does not ignore its friends who are facing difficulties, but cares more and more. The US is doing everything for the benefit of its own country, to protect its hegemony from any threat, and in this context, the US has developed the so-called Indo-Pacific strategy, and India, which happens to be a key part of the Indo-Pacific strategy. If not forced, the United States will probably not easily launch sanctions against India, which is not a good thing for the United States itself. The relationship between China and Russia is indestructible, and the relationship between Russia and India is getting closer and closer. If the relationship between China and India eases, there may be a situation where China, Russia, and India agree and may even unite against the United States. The pessimism that China will overtake the United States as the leading space power is due to a lack of awareness of the urgency of the problem in the US government and industry. Moreover, according to a recent report on the state of the US space industry base, upper-level bureaucrats are hindering the growth of the US space industry through regulatory burdens. The development of hypersonic missiles puts the US missile warning system at a disadvantage. The current US system built by Lockheed Martin relies on more expensive high-orbiting satellites to warn of and track missiles and has difficulty tracking hypersonic missiles. US dominance in space is fading. The article concludes that cyber attacks or the loss of US space capabilities would completely destroy the US ability to respond to military attacks. The New York Times published an op-ed by Michael Roberts, former president of the U.S. Maritime Cooperation Organization. The author calls for: the United States has passed specific legislation to impede China's control of the oceans and prevent it from becoming a maritime superpower. China already has the world's largest navy, although its ability to counter U.S. naval power is questionable. But the authors note that Beijing has realized that naval power is measured by more than just firepower and highlight China's success in commercial shipping. China has become a global maritime power with thousands of merchant ships plying the seas, a huge shipbuilding industry capable of producing more and more vessels, and a global supply chain so dominant that it would subdue the US in a possible future conflict of sorts. On October 1st, as the Chinese people welcomed the National Day, foreign leaders also sent congratulatory messages to China in accordance with diplomatic protocol, and this time the external winds seemed to have changed, with not only China's friendly countries expressing their congratulations, but also Western countries led by the United States showing a friendly attitude toward China. According to Xinhua News Agency, on the National Day, leaders of 86 countries sent congratulatory messages to China, expressing warm congratulations on the 73rd